when you harvest honey, if it's roughly 70-75% capped, you're probably fine with moisture content. 18.6 moisture or less is what you're after, so that honey won't ferment. So you, as a hobby beekeeper, you just make sure most of your honey's capped, and harvest during a drier period if possible. If it's real humid and been raining every day, that's not an ideal time to harvest your honey. It's better to harvest when you've had several dry days or good dry sunny days in a row. So timing the harvest is important. But if you do need to test it, and when I say 70%, I mean 70% of the surface of the frames, 70% of the super. I may find, like here's a frame that's got a significant amount of honey, but all of this is uncapped. So that's probably just like maybe 10% capped. This one's more like 70%, maybe 65-70%. And so this might be more susceptible to fermentation. I can test that with a refractometer. This measures the moisture content of honey. I just take a sample from one of the cells, place it on the lens. The honey in the center is more likely to be drier than the honey on the edges, so it might be good to get a little representation from several locations. Close the lens and take a reading. And that is 18, that's just about right. 18.6, 18.8, right in the right ballpark. So I would be okay extracting that frame. And I'm extracting a lot of honey, usually 5,000-6,000 pounds a year. So if I have a lot of honey that's 17 or 18 and a little bit that's 19 or 20, the blend comes out pretty good. So as we spin honey in the extractor, when it comes out of the valve to be strained, I can test it there, and then I'm getting the moisture content of the whole blend, of some that may have been high moisture and some that's lower. So this has been moisture tested. When harvesting on a larger scale, sometimes I harvest a lot of uncapped honey, and I use a dehumidifier to dry the whole room. That's just more efficient. I can't go and select frame by frame and juggle all this stuff around. As a hobby beekeeper, you have more time to time your harvests like that. But to get varietals, if I harvest something that's uncapped like this, it's obviously probably less than 50% capped. I may dehumidify the room for a couple of days to get my moisture content right. This has already been tested. We're in good shape with it. I like this roller punch. It works really good to penetrate the cappings. We just roll it down the honey cappings and it pulls that wax layer off the top. So you can see here how we've opened up those cells. If you miss an area, when the centrifugal force of that extractor starts going, it pushes the whole comb out of the frame and you'll ruin your combs. So it's real important that you get the whole capped area on both sides. Make sure those are opened up, and then place that in the extractor. This is kind of like the spokes of a wheel. It's a radial extractor. It'll hold 20 frames. There's also an electric hot knife, which we don't have ready, but I can just show you how that works. This gets plugged in, the knife's heated, and once it's up to temperature, I place the frame on the stand like this, and the knife rests on the wood of the frame, and with a sawing motion it just carves the cappings off. If you like to do things with beeswax, a knife might be a better bet because you remove a lot more wax. You strain the honey out of that wax, and then you've got a fair amount of beeswax left over. And then we'll reuse these combs next year. The bees can reuse the combs. They repair the damage that's made. The one reason I'm really enjoying the capping punch is it does very little damage to the comb. My strainer and filters don't get clogged nearly as fast. And I don't really need that much beeswax. So I can open up the cappings by rolling this. And then it leaves very little repair work for the bees to do. After this honey is extracted, these combs will be stored for winter, And a super full of these combs will go right back on a hive for next year's honey production. And if the bees don't have to build this comb again next year, they can go right to putting honey in it, which will make for a larger crop.